Welcome to Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music with your host, multi-award-winning music producer, Eddie Kilroy. And now, here's your host, Eddie Kilroy.
Hey, how in the world are you? Welcome to another edition of Kilroy's Outlaws, Legends, and Behind the Music. We've got a lot to talk about today, and about one individual who's one of the biggest superstars in country music with a longevity that is to be envied by so many. I'm talking about the great Conway Twitty. What an entertainer, what a gentleman, what a great, great recording artist. And showman also. Yeah, Conway is a special guy. I'm not going to tell you things today about different things you see on the internet or you can find online about Conway. I'm going to tell you things that I knew as having the opportunity as a songwriter, record producer, major label head, and just a general type guy in the music industry in Nashville for so many years that I became friends with so many people, and I cherish them, but so many have gone on. And the whole premise of what I'm doing right now, because there's only, two or three of us, meaning people like myself, who were there at the time and lived through these experiences that are left alive today. If I don't tell these stories that you can't find online through a Google search or anything, the stories will all be gone when the few of us that are left are gone. So that's the premise of this podcast. And we're talking about Conway, a superstar. I mean, Conway Twitty, his name was known everywhere. Somebody asked me, how do you come up with Conway Twitty when everybody knows from, here's another thing, I'm telling you something anybody can find out on the internet, I don't want to bore you with it. His real name, Harold Jenkins, changed it to Conway Twitty. How'd he change it to Conway Twitty? He was looking at an atlas. He wanted a name that would stick with people, and Harold Jenkins did not just jump out at somebody, I don't guess. Conway thought so. I think with the music that he recorded, he could have named him Herman Zickapoose, and he would have been a star because the music was so good. But he came up with Conway Twitty by looking at a map and kind of bouncing around the names of different small towns and cities that would flow well. And he was in the section of Arkansas on an atlas, and he saw Conway. He said, Conway. Yeah, I'm liking Conway, but I got to have a back name. And he started looking through Texas, and he saw a town called Twitty. He said, that's it. That's my last name, Conway Twitty. So at that moment, he became Conway Twitty and started cutting records. But before he started cutting records, he had a band locally, and he played the beer joints, and he played the usual places when he was young. And he got into rockabilly, influenced by Elvis Presley, who influenced just about everybody of that era. And he had a song called Only Make Believe. And he recorded that song, and it went number one like, pow! It's Only Make Believe. I don't know. I couldn't. I'd have to cheat. I'd have to go to online to find out how many weeks it was number one. But I'm going to go off the top of my head and say It's Only Make Believe was number one 2 or 3 weeks on the Hot 100 in Billboard magazine. Then his love for country kept growing and growing, and he kept missing his roots. So he wrote a song. It was a country song called My Shoes Keep Walking Back to You. Ray Price recorded it and had a huge record on it. Conway wrote the song. If you remember that song, you might not know that Conway wrote it. But he did so many things. He had 55 number one records. 55 number one records. That's more than Elvis Presley had. That's more than over in the pop field that Michael Jackson had. And you said, well, Elvis didn't live very long. Yeah, but he had a lot of hits. And after Elvis died, his records sold more after death than he was alive. But in spite of that, Conway had more number one records than anyone at that particular time, surpassed since then by Alan Jackson, who had more number one records. Was it Alan Jackson? Yeah, Alan Jackson, I think, surpassed him. Gosh, I think I'm wrong on that. It wasn't Alan Jackson. He had 55 number one records. Okay, it came on, and of course it was George Strait. Kilroy, you idiot! George Strait surpassed him on number one records. He had surpassed Sonny James. They're bidding up number one records. I guess you can just say that Conway had a flock of number one records and be done with it. And he won so many darn awards. He won 13 big-time awards. It was like 4 years. They had a Duet of the Year, 4 years in a row with Loretta. Getting back to the Loretta deal, Loretta was on MCA Records also. And, Owen Bradley, the great Owen Bradley, decided to pair them up and start doing duets on Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn. And they came up with some big ones. They had I think 13 big records. After the Fire's Gone, remember After the Fire Is Gone was a big one. Lead Me On, Louisiana Man, Mississippi Woman, that was a big one. As Soon as I Hang Up the Phone, that was another big one. Feelings, that was a number one record. Conway and Loretta had the magic going. You know, I'm gonna be kind of jumping around a little bit here, but remember I'm flying off with the seat of my pants and what's left of my mind. People often wondered if Conway and Loretta had a romantic thing going. I don't know. I can't tell you. I was not involved nightly or daily with them, but I know their personalities, and I knew both of them as people, and both of them were friends. I'm going to say no. They did not have a romantic thing going. They were business partners in these duets and their recordings. They were also business partners in a very successful booking agency called United Talent, run by a guy by the name of Jimmy J. And they also booked Mickey Gilley, which was a plus for Gilley. I had cut a lot of hits, 4 or 5 hits, number one records at that particular time on Mickey Gilley when I was producing him, when I was running Playboy Records and signed him to Playboy. But we needed to get him in front of people. And when a new artist has, 3, 4, 5 number one records, people really don't identify with them. They've got to get out and be seen. So if they can get on a show with some big acts, they can be seen by a lot more people than they could ever draw. So by teaming up with Conway and Loretta and opening their shows for, maybe going on 2 years, Gilley was exposed to millions and millions of people that would never have seen him before. And it helped propel him into superstardom and who Mickey Gilley ended up being. But Conway and Loretta were just super, super wonderful people. And I couldn't say enough about him. Conway, he had, as well as being a great artist, entertainer, as I mentioned before, and a good businessman. He was a big baseball guy, into baseball as a youth, and played baseball. He was scouted by the Philadelphia Phillies. He didn't quite make the grade there, but years went by and he became very successful, and along with success brings a lot of money. So Nashville was open for a minor league franchise, meaning AAA baseball right below the major leagues where they send the people. You baseball fans know exactly what I'm talking about. So the Nashville Sounds belonged to Conway Twitty. He loved them. That was his deal, that baseball team. I'd go to a few baseball games out there, and Conway would be out there with his ball cap on and his shorts on, and he'd be just loving the game. And then along with that, he built a tourist attraction that was unparalleled to anything in Nashville at the time, except maybe Opryland. He built Twitty City. And what is Twitty City, or what was Twitty City? Out on Gallatin Road. And his home was there. It was more or less I would call it a antebellum home, perhaps. It had the big white columns and so forth. And that's where Conway lived. Not unusual, except it was surrounded by homes for his mother, homes for his kids, home, all his kin people there, his close kin, and also gift shops, record store, you name it, it was there. And it was all for the fans to come see and take a walk around and see Twitty City. Now, here's how he was. I'd already spoken to you about how he would sign autographs till 3 o'clock in the morning if he had to, because he loved to be with the people and he loved to be with the fans of his. So he built Twitty City where they could come. Now, here's a superstar, 55 number one records, Hall of Fame. He, eventually, after he died, they put him in the Hall of Fame. They always do that too late, generally speaking, but he went in 99, I think, 2099, to, no, that'd been 1999. He went into the Hall of Fame. I get that confused with people that are getting ready to go in there, but Conway loved being with people, and he figured that would be a way to consummate his relationship with his fans, is to be available to them. He'd walk out the front porches, wave at them. He'd walk out in the crowd and sign autographs. This is during the daytime. It was not after a show. This was just, he'd say, I'm watching TV, not enjoying it. I think I'll walk out the front door and go out there and be with a flock of fans that have gathered up enjoying Twitty City. And he spent a fortune also in decorating Twitty City for Christmas. I don't know how many lights he put up, but trust me, people would come for hundreds of miles to see Twitty City decorated for Christmas. And he loved every minute of seeing the smiles on people's faces and them enjoying the Christmas festivities in Twitty City. And he had an innate way of picking out hit songs. He was always looking for a hit song. Now, as a record producer, I was doing the same thing for my artists. And I would go through hundreds and hundreds of tapes before I'd find that one, maybe that I think would have the magic for that particular artist I was recording. But Conway would look incessantly for songs. He was always looking for songs. And he was saying, I'm doing all of these country songs, and I'm going to continue doing country, but I'm going to start recording songs that women like. And quite honestly, he told me, he said, women like songs, sexy songs. I said, really? He said, yeah. So he's doing all these sexy songs like, I can't remember all the names of them, but he went through a block of them. I could probably ask Liz, since she would know them all. How women are, but let's see, what were some of those things? After the Fire's Gone as a duet. Hello, Darling, of course, was a big hit, but that wasn't a sex song. That was just a hit country song, but he had a bunch of others in there, then I think you would remember them. But anyhow, I had a bunch of number one hits on Mickey Gilley. And they were getting tired of old songs, me redoing old songs, which we weren't. They were all number one songs. They went number one. But then I found this one song for Mickey Gilley. And I said, man, I've got to have that song for Gilley. And I did. And I said, wow. And then I played it for Gilley. I said, Gilley, here's your career song. And I played it for him. He said, it was a 2/4 song in 2/4 time. And he said, I don't know if that's for me or not. And I said, well, let me show you right now something that I can play a little bit of piano. And I gave a little boogie run on there, and I said, don't the girls get prettier at closing time? He said, yeah, I see what you mean. I said, sit down at the piano and play it. And, man, he said, yeah, that's good. So he went over and told Conway, he said, Kilroy found a song that he says is going to be huge for me. Don't the girls get prettier at closing time? And Conway said, oh, Gilley, don't record that song. The women will hate it. You've got to record songs that they like. Women like that. And they're going to hate it. And Gilley came back and said, Conway said not to record this because the women would hate it. And I said, tell Conway I don't care. I'm going to record it on you, and it's going to be your career record, not only a number one record, but you'll be singing it the rest of your life. So get used to it and like it. And needless to say that we cut Don't the Girls Get Prettier at Closing Time, boom, it went number one. Boom, it still was Mickey Gilley's career record that he had to do the rest of his life, But Conway didn't like it because it was not something that he thought that the women would be attracted to. But nevertheless, it was a wonderful time being a friend of Conway's, and it always will be a memories in my mind. One thing I recall being in Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, yes, and I can't remember I'd be lying to you whether I tell you we were at Harrah's or the Hilton there. But when I was at MCA, Universal, I would always go to a venue where one of our acts was working. And I think it was Haggard that was working at that venue. And for some reason, Conway was there also. So it was killing two birds with one stone because both recorded for MCA Universal, which I was running there in Nashville. And we got on the dice table shooting craps one night, the three of us, Conway and Haggard and myself. And I went down pretty quick. I mean, by my standards, I lost a lot of money, way too much. And I told Conway, I said, Conway, I've lost a lot of money. I can't afford to lose any more. I'm going to my room. I said, are you going to go up or stay here? He said, Merle, what do you want to do? Merle said, I'm going to stay, Haggard. And Conway said, well, I'll stay with Haggard. So next morning at breakfast, they're at the hotel, and I said, Conway, how'd you do after I left? He said, I'll put it this way. I'd have been far better off if I'd have gone with you. Because I'd lost a ton, I lost more. But Conway, that was about his only vice. He loved to shoot craps. He loved to gamble. Didn't smoke. Well, that's a lie. He smoked like a lot, but he didn't drink and didn't do any drugs. He was just a straight guy and a wonderful guy. And I'm trying to think now, is there anything I'm missing on that I'd like to share with you on Conway that you would not get online? I think I've said all. I'll say one more thing. I never will forget two of his band members that were friends of mine. The drummer was called Pork Chop, and Pork Chop was kind of a character, and a character on stage, but a good drummer. Worked for Conway for many, many years. From the inception of his stardom, here was Pork Chops. But Big Joe, Big Joe was his his bass player. I'm thinking about football because I played football, and I was going to tell you, at my prime playing football as a young man, and I only say this to show you how big Big Joe was. I was 6'4", weighed 240 pounds, wasn't fat, I was in good shape. Well, Big Joe dwarfed me. He was a big guy. Big Joe, I never did ask him how tall he was, but he had to be 6'6", 6'7". He was Conway's bass player, and he was so much bigger than I that I always felt like, gosh, there's a big old boy, you know. But he was just the nicest guy. And what always amazed me, he could fold up and get into a Corvette. And a Corvette back then didn't have a lot of room. They didn't make Corvettes for guys that were 6'6", 6'7", 240, 250 pounds. I tried to get in one a long time ago. I saw one at a service station in my hometown, and I always wanted a Corvette. And I asked the guy at the service station, the Corvette was there being serviced, and I said, hey, you think the owner would mind if I'd get in that car? It was a 53 Corvette. And he said, no, go ahead and try it. I tried to crawl in it. I tried to backhand it. I tried to put a foot in it, then get the other foot. There was no way that I could get in a 53 Corvette. Obviously, in that year, they didn't have tilt wheels. Now, Big Joe, he could slide into his Corvette, but that Corvette had to be somewhere in the 60s or perhaps early 70s. Maybe they had a tilt wheel, but he was such a big guy and so nice. Everybody around Conway was nice because that's what he expected them to be, because he was nice. In the absence of Liz today, I've been kind of winging it. She'd probably been here to help me, but she's out getting some horses ready to show them some things. And she said, I'm going to go take the horses. You want me to do the show or go take care of the horses? I said, well, the horses are a little bit more important because we're getting ready to take them somewhere. I was talking about sex songs that Conway did that women liked. Lay Me Down. Is that suggestive or not? Trust me, Lay Me Down was a big record. That was just one of many of those songs that Conway chose to do that he said that people liked. I want to ask you one more thing, and then I'll let you go. Would you please hit subscribe and subscribe to our podcast and hit like and ask your friends to share it? Let me tell you why. I really, really need you to do this. There's only 2 or 3 guys left living that saw what I saw. They were there. they were just like me. They were friends with the artist at that time, and their friendship remained, and they got to see him and some of my peers, the ones living I'm talking about, they may not have been close to Conway, and I may not have been close to an artist that they were close to, but combined we have all the stories. And when we're gone, there are not going to be any stories. And I'm thinking also that the reason that these stories of these wonderful traditional country artists need to be told is that soon they only will be a memory if we don't keep the memory alive. Because they've got all the new people out there, they call themselves country. And I'm not saying they're horrible people, trust me, but their music is not country. And they don't dress like a country star should dress because people put their money down. Yeah, I'm on a rant. I can stay on this rant for an hour and a half, but I won't. People come to see a star, then by golly, dress like a star. Don't dress like a street person with holes in your jeans, your baseball cap backwards, the elbows of your shirt torn. To say they dress like street people, that would be insulting street people. They don't even dress that well. Now, can you imagine 20 years from now, and they're trying to decide what in the hell is country music now, but they have to come to some answer because they've got to keep that building, the Country Music Hall of Fame, open in Nashville, and they'll say, who are we going to induct into the Hall of Fame? Oh, yeah. And they put one of these new people, they call them country, in there with tattoos all over their face and everything, and tattoos everywhere, and they're trying to explain to a visitor who's put down money to get into the Hall of Fame, who is that? Well, this is the guy that sang this song so-and-so. I never heard of that song before. What's he doing in the Hall of Fame? Well, we didn't have any old country singers to put in. We ran out of them, So that's what it's going to end up being. So we're trying to keep the good memories alive of the great country acts that lived and we enjoyed so much in our life. And to do that, I need you to subscribe, like I said, and like, and share it to your friends. Also, comment. There's a place for you to comment. If you like what I'm doing, let me know. If you hate what I'm doing, let me know. If there's a particular artist that you really love, hopefully I knew it, he or she, and I can give you some more insight into them, I will try. If I didn't know them, and if I had to go to Wikipedia or go online and Google them, it's not right for me to do them because you could do the same thing. I want to tell you stories that you can't get online about your favorite artist. So if you would like for me to do one on an act of your choice, please put that in comments. But go to comments, subscribe, like, send it to your friends, ask them to do the same thing. Let's keep country music alive. This is Kilroy saying, hey, same thing. Let's keep country music alive. This is Kilroy saying, hey, bring up old paint. I got to saddle up and drift. Next time, I'm not going to let Liz go with the horses. She's going to be with me. God bless each and every one of you out there.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music. If you have any thoughts or questions about the content, email them. Kilroy Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. That's Kilroy, no S, Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. And don't forget to subscribe. Third-party use of any part of this podcast without the expressed consent of Eddie Kilroy is prohibited. The Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music podcast is a production of Eddie Kilroy.